Weird setup here, but give me a chance. This is fascinating. You know, we have not even started. Well, we've sort of started the football season, and it started with like just it's on fire already. You know, Joe Burrow going down. I mean, we got coaches talking trash. We're 3 days into training camp. We haven't even had the most meaningless football game ever created, other than the Pro Bowl, the Hall of Fame game. But man, the Jets, they are already living up to everything. I mean, like just everything. I mean, they're already fascinating. And that's Aaron Rodgers in on this one. And this is really, really interesting. And I want you to follow this because this is what I like. Business issues. You know, stuff that makes you think. This one really makes you think. It's rare that any football-related story, although this is sort of superficial football stuff, but it's rare that a football story would make you think this much. But I got a weird setup. And then we're going to go, and then you can think about it. Forget the Saudis buying into NFL teams, and that will not happen anytime soon. And it won't happen, just so you know, this is a sidebar to the discussion, but the Saudis are not going to buy into the NFL because the NFL has such a hard salary cap. So that money, it's not really going to be able to have much of an impact. The whole point of Saudi money, sport washing, buying up clubs is their money instantly. They put so much money into it, it instantly fixes a team. That's tough to do in the NFL where you can't just spin wildly. An NBA team, which is a softer cap, I could see Saudi money making its way there. But this is not about Saudi money. Saudi money is not going to be buying into NFL teams. But how about quarterbacks buying into NFL teams? It really is fascinating, and I think it's brilliant. I think, you may disagree, owners not going along with this is stupid and quite possibly illegal. In fact, I'm not even sure quite possibly illegal. This has the markings of being illegal. Now, you never do anything to the NFL owners because they are the most powerful cartel on the planet. They are. They never are going to be in any trouble. They're never going to be in any legal trouble. But this one, they're not in the right on this on many levels. So here's the question for all of you. Why not let a star player of any kind, but we certainly know the kind of money that's being handed out. Just 2 days ago, you got a $300 million contract, okay? So quarterback money is the biggest money by far. So obviously, these are quarterback-related stories just because their money is so big. Why not let a star player / star quarterback have equity in your franchise? Why not? I mean, it's relevant. It's very relevant when you think about what's coming up next in the NFL, and that is Joe Burrow's contract. Like, that's just, we are walking right up to that. And that's going to be a gigantic contract. That could be a $500 million contract. So why not? Why not let them have equity in the franchise? I mean, think of the implications of, forget Joe Burrow for a second. Joe Burrow is going to be probably in the $400 million range, maybe $500 million. Imagine when Patrick Mahomes says, you know what? I think it's time for me to get paid too. And you know what I want? I want equity in the franchise. Why not? Why shouldn't a player, because they are now, why shouldn't a player negotiate an equity stake with the franchise? If you owned a team, why would you not want it? How can you blame a player for saying, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to leave some money. Let's leave the cash out of this. I want equity. Built-in incentive. Makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Why wouldn't you want that as an owner? I can answer, by the way. I know the answer. I got this figured. I have it figured out already. But it's such an interesting thing that has happened, and it's coming from the most unlikely people. And I think this is. I think it's smart. I think for an owner to let him in is smart. I think for the league to let him in is smart. I think for players wanting a cut of the action, he's really smart. It's still not going to happen. So think to yourself, why wouldn't the owners, the league, the owners run the league, why wouldn't owners want this? Why not? Now, I'm going to tell you the story that's out there and the people involved. And sure enough, it's Aaron Rodgers. And I think that's smart. I mean, but it's not just Aaron Rodgers. And if you're Joe Burrow's agent, if you're Patrick Mahomes' agent, or if you're the player, I'm not sure an agent would go for this, but the player says, you know what I really want? I want in for the long haul. I want 8% of the Kansas City Chiefs. I want 15% of the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm going to leave out some money so I can get equity in this franchise. Seems perfectly reasonable and perfectly fair. The owners won't do it. But they may be forced to. All right. Weird story that's not going to get a lot of play because people don't like to think about stuff like this. I do. The NFL, according to ProFootballTalk.com, who was run by a lawyer, the NFL, curiously, has slammed the door on teams giving equity to players or employees before anyone ever actually tried to do it. Now guys are trying to do it. Get this. Per multiple sources, the representatives of USC quarterback Caleb Williams won the Heisman Trophy last year by every metric you can see. He's going to be the first player in the draft. The Arizona Cardinals are tanking on purpose already to get Caleb Williams. And Caleb Williams, he has an agent already. And the agent said, you know what we want coming in? We want a cut of the action. I think it's really smart. Why would it be smart? Well, last time we checked, it's not like these things are depreciating in value. They're appreciating at an unbelievable pace. Given the valuations of NFL franchises, given the fact that the game is more popular than ever, given the fact that the media rights deals, platforms are bigger than ever, the merchandising is bigger than ever, all the money coming into the game is bigger than ever. Why wouldn't you want to do that? Why wouldn't you say, you know what, you don't have to pay me an extra $100 million or $200 million. I want $400 million of the franchise. I want 3%. So Caleb Williams out of USC apparently has been making it known to prospective teams that he wants partial ownership. He wants partial ownership of the team that selects him in 2024. Now, he doesn't have to. This really sets up in an interesting way because he doesn't have to come out. I mean, it'd be idiotic for him not to. He is the first pick in the draft. He was the first pick in the draft 2 weeks ago. It will be 2 weeks from now. He'll be the first pick in the draft. But, I mean, he could, I guess, say, you know what, I'm not coming out. I'm not coming to play, Cardinals, unless you let me have a cut of the action. It'd be pretty cool. And apparently he's floating the idea. So he's not the only one. Enter stage left, Aaron Rodgers. Well played, hipster. League sources tell Pro Football Talk that Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers attempted to secure equity in his contract discussions with the Jets. So the Jets reportedly never had to tell him no because the league did it for the Jets. And anytime you ever hear anybody say the league or anything about the commissioner, understand that's the owners. That's the owners. They make all decisions. So the league stepped in and said, Jets, don't answer him. No, we're not going to do that. I think that's brilliant. I'm challenging anyone to tell me why this, on both sides, why this isn't a good idea. Why the league wouldn't even want this. I mean, it's practical. It's the way we live. It's the way successful people get wealthier. It's the way companies work. It's the way business can get better. Have skin in the game, right? Every one of you appreciate that. So why, Jeff? Why would this not happen? Well, you got to appreciate the old white guys. See, first of all, you have to appreciate the old men, the cartel that run the pro football business. Of course, it makes perfect sense. Of course, Aaron Rodgers obviously gave in and said, okay, never mind. I'm not sure about Caleb Williams, though, because there's a lot of thinking now that owners saying no to this could be collusion by itself. Collusion doesn't take every owner. Collusion only takes, lawyers help me here, 2 or 3 to say, no, don't do that. Because it's not right. I mean, frankly, it's un-American. And you should want your employees to buy in. So I don't think this is the end of it if Caleb Williams wants it. What if Joe Burrow says, hey, Bengals, 10%, we got a deal. No 10%, I'm not playing next year. So I think this thing is going to get pushed further and further, and it should. Aaron Rodgers gave up. So why wouldn't the owners do it? There's no practical reason, in my opinion, not to do it. You can put yourself in that position. Why wouldn't they do it? I'll tell you why they won't do it. They won't do it because they do not want to have any influence on how they run their business, and they sure the heck don't want to have any player-related influence on how they run their business. Cartel is the best way to put it. They don't want anybody in. They're going to not let anybody in because they don't want you to step in there and say, I think we could run this a better way. I think you ought to do this with players. They don't want anybody else in there except their fraternity. It is probably the most guarded fraternity there is. You could infiltrate a cartel better than you can NFL ownership group. So they don't want any influence. They don't want any attempted influence. They not only don't want to share their money, which they don't, and that's another thing. They don't want to share their money, and they don't want you to know what happens with their money. But they not only don't want to share their money, they don't want anyone having any say in how the league operates. So some player comes in, even former player comes in, although Tom Brady's got a stake in the action. I don't know why if Tom Brady can have a piece of the Raiders, why Caleb Williams or Aaron Rodgers or Joe Burrow or Dak Prescott, shouldn't as well. But the owners are going to push back because they don't want another perspective. I mean, what if Caleb Williams is there and he gets a share of it? Granted, it's going to be a minority share. I mean, these guys aren't billionaires. I mean, there's a few $100 million. It's not going to get you a heck of a lot of a franchise, but whatever. I mean, you got in. And if you're an owner and Caleb Williams or Aaron Rodgers says, wait a second here. I mean, you really ought to do running backs really ought to get paid more. They're not going to want to hear that. They're not going to want to hear your input. They're not going to hear your knowledgeable input. They don't want to hear from you. They're anti-player. They don't want you to have any say in your own industry. So I think this gets pushed. I don't think this is the last we hear of it. With the gigantic quarterback contracts still out there, and that would be Joe Burrow's first up. One day, Patrick Mahomes, it's a generation of megastars at quarterback, and if this is what they want, they're going to push to get it. So the cartel is going to fight them. And when the cartel fights them, they win. This group of owners gets anything they want. If you ever want proof that they are untouchable, please understand that the owner of the New England Patriots was found on videotape at a place being investigated for human trafficking, and he was arrested and was not charged with anything. Every other person there was charged. They're untouchable, and they don't want anybody in. They don't. I think it's as simple as that. It's another way. Let me be even tougher on this. I think it's like another way for old white guys to say, we don't want those people involved. We don't want them getting into our business. We don't want them getting ownership. I do think that. Am I alleging a hint of racism? I am. That's correct. More than that, they want to run their business their way, and they don't want anybody anywhere with any sort of outside influence, with any sort of hint whatsoever to change or disrupt what they have. They may be guilty of collusion. They may already be guilty of getting together to try to stop this from happening, which would be collusion. Now, whether they would lose is another matter. And some player who's just getting into the game is not going to want to challenge him because that's a good way to die. But think about it. On an individual level, right? Not as a cartel, but on an individual level, wouldn't you want a star player to have a stake in the franchise? I mean, that would That's exactly what I would want. I mean, if you want someone to stick around, what better way to get them to stick around? You want somebody to play hard. You want somebody with skin in the game. What better way to do it than have star players? The star player. The players were trying to negotiate a piece of the action. I don't know how that can ever be bad. Aaron Rodgers having a stake in the Jets made perfect sense. And he may have started day one trying to do that, which makes perfect sense. And he may have obviously given up on that, but it makes perfect sense. You pay him less, or you pay Joe Burrow less, or you pay Caleb Williams less. In exchange, he gets a piece of the action. How could that possibly be bad if, unless you're an NFL owner who is paranoid that somebody might find out how they operate? I think it's brilliant. I don't think this is the end of it until they kill it off or get together and do what they do, and that is make sure you get paid off and go away. But how they're going to get Caleb Williams to go away? He's going to be the first player taken the draft. His career's just starting. He and his agent already saying, listen, here's what we want. You want to draft my guy? My guy wants 10% of the action. Do that or else. We're not coming. I like it. I like the setup. It's always a good day when owners are afraid.